Welcome back to Easthaven County, Massachusetts, where we are going to continue the development of the future capital city here on this island. And in the previous episode, we placed down the very first important service buildings as well as the very first neighborhoods. Now, it may not be obvious from my deadpan, monotone voice, but I am so excited to continue the development of this future county capital today. So we're gonna do just that. We're gonna continue doing it in the reverse order. And if you guys recall from the previous episode, what I mean by that is that we're not gonna develop downtown until we have fully developed the surrounding inner city neighborhoods first, because I'm hopeful that's gonna make it easier and a lot more fun to actually build downtown, and that when downtown has been developed, the city is gonna look more complete because you will have a surrounding core of inner city stuff around it, right? That's the theory, at least. We're gonna see how that actually works out. But we're not gonna start with either Winter or Coleridge today. We're actually gonna start with this hill here. Because in the previous episode, I asked you guys, what are we actually going to build here? I was kind of out of ideas. And I don't think I've ever seen you guys being that much in agreement that there needs to be some sort of fort here, like a historically significant fort. So I am definitely going to build a fort up here, because otherwise you guys are just gonna riot and I wouldn't want that. But I'm going to combine it with some suggestions for building a really old row house neighborhood up here as well, because I definitely feel we can fit in the both of them. So we're gonna go for some really narrow one-way streets and some of the old beautiful looking row houses from both the US and the European set. So we're gonna start with the fort, and this is gonna be tricky, and I'm gonna have to try some things out, because just plopping down these castle ruins is not really gonna cut it. It's not gonna look the part. And the other option we have, as far as just plopping something and be done with it, is the medieval castle, which, as the name implies, is from a very different time period. And I mean, besides that, it is massively expensive, and I'm bleeding money, so I should probably hit pause. So I guess my point is I'll have to build something custom, and yeah, we're just gonna give this a go. I think I need more space at least. I don't want to be restricted on space, so I'm just going to kind of elevate this part of the hill here. We'll have the fort out here in the row house neighborhood here, just so that I'm not limited by space. And then we're gonna do terraforming to kind of fix this all up when we're done. What I want is like a small courtyard, maybe even a roundabout, that I can place a couple of older looking buildings around. It's not gonna be a big fort or anything. So something like this, and then I just need to also kind of branch out with a road, obviously. And then I'll need to place some old buildings, maybe some props around this, and then create like the outer walls. Now, the kind of what I symbolize with this type of fort would be some, you know, star or like a snowflake shape. So I'm gonna try and create that as well. To achieve this, I think I have a very narrow, this one-way key road here that I may be able to use to actually create this look here. I'm just gonna get rid of the trees because they are only going to annoy me. We'll add those in later. And then we're gonna give this a go. And I have to kind of freeform this without snapping. So if you have OCD, apologies in advance, this is going to get slightly ugly, but I'm gonna try and create the ends of the snowflake, basically. So they kind of look like this. Wait a minute, I can actually streamline this. I just need to use math. Not my strong suit, but let's give it a go. So this segment here is gonna be 20 meters. Then the next segment is also going to be 20 meters at an angle of 140, 20 meters at an angle of 70, and then 20 meters once again at an angle of 140. Nice. We should be able to do the very same thing right over here. So 20 meters at 140, 20 meters at 70, and 20 meters at 140. Nice. I guess we could grab this and kind of move that out a bit, but that's an easy task. Kind of align that to the roundabout as well. We can grab this one and kind of align that to the roundabout as well. Let's create an additional one over here. 20. I think this is about as good as it's going to realistically get. So let's grab this road here, enable some snapping, and then connect these segments up. And I think I'll just bring that down here to this road, and I'll create a bit of a shape here as well. And let's just get these connected. Something like this. Now, there's gonna be a bit of clipping here because this is a very, very narrow road. So it's only ever going to make sense as soon as I add in the key segments, or rather upgrade one segment, or one side of it, sorry, to a key segment. So let's just move ahead and do that for the entire length of this quote-unquote wall we've got going here. And we'll see just how that looks. Obviously, it's only with the terraforming reversed that we're actually gonna see the shape here. So I think we're going to go ahead and do that. Move in here with the level terrain tool, grab a level, and then I'm just going to kind of align this with the walls all the way around the castle. Fort, sorry, it's a fort, right? I mean, it still looks kind of odd, but we're not exactly finished either, so I am hopeful that it's going to make sense. I'm gonna grab these pieces here and then lower them, so that the courtyard and the buildings we'll be placing in here are basically lowered as opposed to the walls. We might lower this wall a little bit as well as over here. Something like this. And then of course this is going to need a bit of additional terraforming, so we'll grab this level here, which is a few meters below the remaining structure. And I might have to add key walls on either side actually to get this to make sense, but for now I'm just gonna try and do this, and I think that's fine. I need some buildings in here obviously, and I don't have a lot of options. I don't have any options realistically, but we're gonna try out some things. So I think if we go for some row houses that are only 2 tiles deep, then something that looks really old, probably this European style even. Grab a couple of these, and then I'm gonna try and see if I can create some form of building here that might look like it was like part of the armory, or whatever have you. This is very much an experiment, but I'm gonna create a couple of these on either side, maybe even do I have room for like 3 of these even, and I'm just gonna place them a little roughly. That didn't work, why not? Maybe place too close together, I'm not really sure. There we go. And then I'll grab this one and the recolor mod to ensure they all have this red bricked color. Like this. Better Bulldozer to delete some of the props. I don't need these garbage thingies. Don't need what is this, air condition. Don't need to be able to receive satellite TV either, believe it or not. Park your bike. That's gonna be hard. There are no bikes in the game. I'm just kind of reducing anything that makes this resemble, a real like residential asset. And I mean, this kind of helps with that at least. Then I need some more buildings, so I'll just make sure these are maybe placed a bit nicer, because I was a bit too rough with my placement, it seems. Like I said, I need a few additional buildings, and my idea is to grab the barns. These are they're basically props, these ones, and then I'm gonna try and see if I can just kind of stitch a few of these together and see if I can, if that's gonna make any sense. I'll see if I can make this red here a little less bright as well, and yeah, just trying to stick this stuff in, stitch it together a bit. see if I can create some kind of customized look. It's really not easy, this task. This red here, can we get that a little less bright? Something like this, so that it mimics this one maybe. There we go. Then we're gonna color the remaining of these. And I think these are the buildings we'll be using. Alright, so a bit of detailing and some terraforming later, and this is the result. And it's a little more like overgrown and less well maintained, I guess, than other forts that have significance history wise. But I kind of like that detail, and I think it blends in a little better like that. So I guess there's some kind of backstory as to why it's not as well kept. But I think we're gonna call it now. We could add in a ton more detailing and props to a build like this, but you know, we're trying to expand the city, so I have to stop at some point at least. So I think we're gonna jump into mapping out the narrow one-way road layout that's gonna cover much of the remaining areas of the hill here, so that we can put down the row house district. So as mentioned, we're gonna keep the roads here pretty narrow and get like a real tight old look going, but I do want some sort of like main road cutting through the hill here. So I think we're going to grab this lane variation here we created a couple of episodes ago, which is basically just the two-way lane with parking on one side. We're gonna enable contour lines. We're gonna go for, let's see, simple curve, I think, and I'll just be creating a few straight segments that I can easily connect up to. So maybe something like this. I don't mind if there's quite a bit of elevation going, by the way. I think that's only going to add a lot of character to this area. I wonder if this is 15% is a little much. 13%, I think that's fine. And we'll get this segment connected up. Get this one connected up and this one here. So we're off to a pretty good start, I feel. Now this connection here, straight segment and just a regular connection. I have to grab the upgrade tool to flip a few segments so that I ensure I have parking on the same side throughout. At least I want that at least. So now we have the main road cutting through, and I think we're gonna stick to the same theme of roads and then just grab this custom lane we made, which is just a one-way and then some parking on one side. And then I think I'm gonna try and get a little creative with some stone or tile surfaces to kind of create custom sidewalks here. But I think what I want now is like a road that kind of separates the hill here from the rest of this area. So if we make a straight segment here and we create a straight segment here and here, then I can make these connections once more. And now we kind of have almost have the, I guess you could call it ring roads complete for this hillside row house neighborhood. There's not much ring road to it, at least it's kind of small, but I guess it actually works. Maybe we can even squeeze in like one additional small road out here as well. So we're just gonna try and make that, and we can always, you know, redo some of these details, change them up a bit, but I think as far as road layouts go, it helps me to just get going, just build something and then see if it works. Can always reiterate if it doesn't. So let's see, I kind of want these to be like long, slightly narrow blocks. So if I create one road like that, and we get one road going like this, then I can probably break up this block here, which is kind of big, like this, and that's pretty good. I think I'm gonna flip the direction though of this road here to something like that. Let's just have a look, see how that actually looks. I guess some of these segments are actually kind of low, but it should look pretty good that you then have like the row houses, the roof lining of the row houses kind of steadily increase until you reach the top of the hill here. And I think while we're at it, I'm actually just gonna grab this road here and bring it through the next block as well. And then we can reserve this for like a surface parking lot for visitors to the fort, or maybe even for some of the residents that actually live here. We're gonna add, actually we could add another one-way street here, just to break that up a little further. Now I am very curious as to whether this layout here is actually zonable, and what I mean by that is that I had initially planned to kind of hand place most of the row houses in the row house districts here in the new city, but we actually did zone all of this in the previous episode, and while it is certainly not perfect, then it just adds a bit of randomness to some of the empty spaces in between the buildings and whatnot, and I think for the most part it actually works out really well. And there's something very satisfying about having a district or a neighborhood that you are happy about, that you've actually zoned. So I think we're gonna try and do the same. It's probably gonna require me to work a bit on the actual layout here. So I'm gonna grab the key tool here, and then I'm gonna make sure that there are some of these roads that we don't have any buildings facing. So I'm just going to upgrade these to keys, because then I at least know that we don't have any zoning next to these. And here I am probably not going to do the same, because we have a bit of a bend here where this default zoning layout seems just fine. But I am going to close this one off. And I think in this case here as well, I mean, this is the parking lot, but here as well, it probably makes pretty good sense to actually have this layout going. So I'll just get the rest of this zoned up, and then we'll let this grow and we'll see how it actually looks afterwards. I'm pretty positive this is actually gonna look just all right. So we'll just try to make this, work. So I've just been mixing in some European zoned row housing as well, kind of just to mix it up, and because when these grow to higher levels, they are gonna look quite a bit older than their US counterparts, which is going to just make this whole area look a little more interesting. Something else I want to do to add a bit more character is grab this red bricked black roof color from like this particular instance, and then I'm gonna colorize most of this district in the very same color scheme. Not necessarily all the houses, I'm just gonna like pretty randomly go through and add it to most of them, but don't mind a few outliers here and there. That's perfectly fine. It's just to make this interesting, make it look a little more interesting, sorry. Make it stand out a bit more, because I do imagine this to be quite a special area. As for how the actual zoning turned out, I mean, when we have these curved roads, then, you know, the real weaknesses in the zoning system of Cities Skylines is really showing its It's pretty ugly face, but I mean, what we can always do is we can just grab a few buildings with the picker tool and just add them in, and you know, that's just gonna help a bit, adding in a few buildings to those hard to zone lots. So you know, just by adding in a few additional buildings, it's going to look a lot better. But basically, I think you know, zoning, it works, especially when we add in the trees, because we have these empty spaces in between all the houses now, which we're of course gonna fill in with bushes and trees and whatnot. Before I dive into the surface painter and try to make some custom sidewalks, but the trees are on the menu first. They are, you know, the single biggest difference maker in an area like this. So getting these added with some bushes and different variations is going to make all the difference. Yeah, as expected, adding in the trees makes such a massive difference, and this is really starting to look quite good, especially for a zoned area. And I can see some of the buildings have also started upgrading, which is absolutely perfect. We'll see more variation and some of the older looking assets. So for the surface trick, I want to use one of the tile surfaces, probably the 01 here, which I really like, and then I just want to create like a narrow path, like a narrow sidewalk stretch basically alongside one of these streets here, and maybe only on one of the, you know, one side where the cars are parking. Actually, I'm gonna do the other side here. So let's see, we've got snapping enabled. I'm gonna snap to this very corner here, then we are gonna move down to about here. We'll move up, not by a lot though, but we can adjust it afterwards. Down here and complete. And then let's just see, that actually looks kind of good, so I don't think I'm gonna do any adjustment right now, at least. I will try and do an additional stretch here. It's not perfectly aligned, so this is really just gonna have to be a case of good enough. But that also looks pretty good actually. So I might just do the one side, and then we're gonna keep the side here with the parking free, because I also kind of like this look of different types of you know, pavement meeting the road here. But I'm gonna do the same over here then, because we also have we have the very same road, so we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna do the segment here which doesn't have any parking alongside it. And oh, the alignment here is gonna be a little tricky, so we'll disable snapping. And pretty happy with how that's looking. We of course need to turn this into a district and name it, but I guess the district part is also very important, because our service coverage is on a district to district basis. So as long as this isn't part of an actual district, we can't allocate police, fire, garbage collection, all that good stuff to it. Battery Park was a suggestion for the name. I'm gonna take inspiration from that and just call it Battery Hill, which I think is very, very fitting. Given the fort here, which has obviously used to have several batteries to sink stuff out here, I suppose. And now that we have Battery Hill created, we can assign some services. So the hospital we're using, we can't actually go on a district basis, so that's automatically going to service any need out there. But the city firehouse is going to be on a per district. So I'm just gonna select the whole thing up. There you go, and the same is going to be the case with our police station here. We're just gonna select all the districts here. And if you haven't played around with this functionality yet. It basically just allows you to restrict certain service buildings to specific districts. So this police station, as an example, is not going to respond to calls outside of the assigned districts. And of course, I need to remember Queen's Cape out here. I know people live here, but there will eventually. And let's see, the school basically just serves, it just serves broadly everyone, but it should actually only serve the island here, although I think it's still going to be completely maxed out. And of course, garbage collection, otherwise things are gonna go real bad real quick. But I think that's about it. Now, there are also quite a few suggestions for turning the hill into a big park, and while we obviously didn't really go in that direction, we do have some empty space here, which I think we can turn into like some very basic recreational space with a few paths, you know, so that you can have a little walk, something like that. So I'm just gonna grab the vanilla pathway because, yeah, I don't want to make this any more complex than it has to be, and just kind of create some paths here so that you can go for a nice walk. This is a place that offers some pretty impressive views of the remainder of the city, as well as the like the rivers or you know, all that good stuff. So I think it would be very fitting with some paths in here. And I know I said I wanted to turn this into a parking lot, but I'm thinking it would also be a nice little park. So maybe we're gonna do half and half. See if I can find like a very small parking lot, a tiny parking lot. I mean, that sounds about right. And what about this one? That actually has like, no, we're just gonna grab this one, the tiny one. And I'm just gonna align it. How am I gonna align it? Like this, I think. And I'm gonna grab the surface tool here because I kind of want to make the surface my own custom one. I don't think it should go much further beyond these white lines than necessary. Let's enable show marker so that I can see where cars will be entering from. And I think that's about it. Maybe for good measure, I know you can't actually enter the parking lot from this side, but I'm just gonna make it like a through lot here. We'll disable snapping so that I can move this a little closer, make it a little more well fitted. And I think that's fine. A little wonky entrance there, but it's fine. Now we can fit in a small park maybe. Let's see. We could actually get this tiny city park going. I wonder how that's gonna look. I'm gonna try and place it. I mean, that actually looks quite alright, I think. So yeah, we're gonna stick to that, I think, for now. We could integrate it a little better by grabbing it's the 01 surface that it's using, and just kind of bringing that around here at the very least, something like that. Maybe even do it over here as well. Actually, no snapping, and just move through here. And then I could maybe just drag out the grassy surfaces here it's using. We can enable snapping again. Just kind of drag these out so that the park is, you know, a little better integrated to the actual space and doesn't just look like it's, you know, a randomly plopped one. So bringing this through, it looks pretty good. I'm wondering what kind of grass we're using here. Is this? I'm just gonna grab this one, I think, and just fill in the rest here. And then we'll of course need a few trees and a few bushes. I think this time around we're not gonna go for the oaks. They are gonna, because they would pretty much just, oh, I'm missing a spot. They would pretty much just end up covering much of this up when we actually look at it. And I think this is a nice little park I would actually like to be able to see. So we'll grab the linden here, a few different sizes throughout. Just get a few of these placed, and then I think we're just gonna go for some bushes. And that's pretty good. Final touch here is gonna be some decals, of course. I need to add some stains and some stuff to this area here. This is definitely not a new area. These roads are not freshly paved. They've been here for many years. So while I imagine Battery Hill is quite the, you know, it's quite a posh area. It's pretty expensive to actually buy a property here. Then it's there are definitely parts of the infrastructure here that are a little more run down given its age. And that, you know, there isn't like a ton of traffic here, so it's not like the city is really prioritizing repaving the roads and stuff like that. And I'm wondering if I can I find some of these like tire tracks, these new ones. Ah, here they are from Sully. Man, oh man, are they nice. So I don't know who'd be crazy enough to do a donut or a burnout here on this tiny parking lot, but I kind of want to see if I can add just a few of these, something like that. And I think that's gonna be it for Battery Hill for now, at least. A ton of fun building this area, and I really think it does have a unique feel, even though we of course have had to reuse a ton of assets that are used throughout pretty much every other American city we built. But yeah, I still think we really managed to give it its own type of character. So I'm gonna switch my focus to winter now, which is completely undeveloped, but a very important piece in the construction of the city, as it pretty much borders directly to downtown. So it's gonna be a very important transitional zone. But we're not gonna start with the medium to high density transition or anything like that. I think I want to start with this corner down here, which I think I'm going to give more like an industrial vibe, to be honest. I want some workplaces down here, some of it be industry, maybe a tiny bit of office as well, but I'm just going to expand the boundaries of winter to also of course include this area. And then we're going to start with some of these oddly shaped blocks here. So if we're going to go for some industry, I think what I want to start doing is I just want to clean out this area, because I'm going to extensively be expanding the surfaces of the industrial buildings to really fit this area and just make the buildings seem a little more custom. So let's move in here. We'll go to industry. I'll open this one. I'll go to level 5 just to start off with. That's going to ensure that these buildings have, you know, this one looks, you know, and it kind of looks like not just like an industrial building, it could go for like an office building as well. There isn't space for it here, so I think we're gonna move down here alongside Elk Street, or is it Cyber Street? No, it's gonna be Elk Street, I think. And we're just gonna freely place it around here, and then I need to grab like a smaller unit as well. I think we're gonna place an office building here, and then we're gonna keep some of the more dirty stuff out here. So this is a big manufacturing something, which I think would be really cool to place here. And let's see what we can find. So it's primarily some manufacturing stuff, not super dirty industry. We have a chimney going on here as I say that, but I'm gonna remove that with the better bulldozer. So don't worry about that particular asset. Yeah, pretty much primarily want the warehouse type stuff here. I'm gonna leave a bit of distance between the buildings here, because as I said, I'll be expanding on the surfaces and we'll be adding, you know, some props and whatnot to that. So it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. Here I kind of want to fuse these buildings together. I think I'm just gonna place 3 of these, something like that. We're gonna grab this color scheme and put that on the other buildings as well, so that it kind of looks like one structure. And I think this is a pretty good start. We kind of need the small office building here we talked about, so we're gonna go low, a level 5, see if I can grab something that can just about fit her. It's a pretty small space, so can obviously make it a little easier for myself if I do something like this. And let's see how we're gonna do this, because I think we'll have this building face both streets. I think that would make a lot of sense. So we'll kind of create our own custom look here. And I'm hopeful that as long as we match the color scheme, it's going to look pretty good. So we'll grab, I think we'll grab this one. It's pretty good looking, and just change that up. And yeah, that's one building now. All right, next is the surface work. So in this case here, I think it makes a lot of sense if we get rid of a segment of the, let's see, can I get rid of this particular fence? I can. Very nice. And then we just expand the surface to kind of cover much of the corner area here as well, so that we can incorporate that. In this particular case here, we are gonna do the same with this particular surface. We are gonna make sure that we don't have like an empty, open, grassy field between these two buildings. Something like this. And then I think in this case here, we're going to grab all the surfaces facing the road here and just bring them real close, so that we don't have this patch of grass in between. And we'll grab one of the pavement surfaces. I guess we'll just grab this one, and we'll kind of just make a random extra lot here where we can place some stuff. And in this particular case, I think we're just going to expand the surface that is a part of this office building, but I kind of want to have a bit of a unique shape, so we'll do something like this, I think, and the rest is probably just going to be grass, because I mean, I think that would make sense for like an office building. All right, let's get rid of the chimney here with the better bulldozer mod, and then we are gonna grab some props. Can I start with the fence in this case? Or is that like a particular fence? Actually, it doesn't matter. I'll grab these. These are already a part of the building, so let's just get a bunch of these placed like that. And then I think we'll just grab whatever industrial fence we can find. So we'll go to net lanes, fences, and maybe it's actually this one that's being used. I'm not quite sure, but I'm just gonna use this one, I think. And that's it almost matches at least. We'll have a few openings. Very, very good. We'll grab the other fence here while we have it selected, and we'll just fence in, I guess we'll fence in this area, and we'll fence in this area here. And we won't be needing any fences for this building. Great. Let's grab the picker mod and see if we can find some additional props we can place at some of these new empty spaces, some of these spaces where we just placed some surfaces. And it's not because I want to place this one, but it's going to open the industrial menu here so that I can maybe grab some shipping containers and add these instead. So let's add a few containers here alongside this building. We'll enable this snapping option so that I can place some on top of each other, get them to stack a bit. Then we have these pallets, and I'll just be adding these. And they kind of clip into the ground, but I mean, if I place enough, then as we zoom out, it shouldn't be all that visible. If we're gonna add anything special to this particular area, we can go into net lanes again for road markings, and we just kind of want to grab like this yellow one, and I'm just gonna do something basically. I mean, just adding anything is just going to add extra character to an area like this, so I am just adding anything. There's not a whole lot of logic or thought process behind it. I'm trying to get better at like detailing quickly, because I think that's a very valuable skill when you're trying to build a big city. And this is starting to look pretty good. We probably need a few props down here as well, but if we get that placed, then we're in a pretty good spot. So let's just see what we can find for that area. Nothing, no dirty industry. Car trailer props. So there's just a bunch of boxes basically. I mean, I guess we can place a few of these like that, and then maybe some vehicle props actually. Just get a bunch of trucks in here. oil truck. Why not? Let's just get one of these. And a classic trailer truck as well, or just the trailer basically. And honestly, I think that's it. I think what is really going to just spice this up. Actually, sorry, we need the grass surface, and I'm gonna go for a well manicured version here that's really gonna kind of stand out compared to the rest here. But I mean, we do have this office building, so why not create a bit of contrast? Then I need the decals before I start adding trees and bushes. And I really just like grabbing this large one from Sully and then just going ham. I'm just gonna hold the right mouse button so that when I move it around, it automatically turns as well. And then just get a few of these placed in. Get a lot on the actual interchange here and a lot there. And that's starting to look pretty good. We are gonna wrap up with bushes and some trees. We finished off with a pretty regular parking lot, some of these wonderful tire mark decals, some graffiti here and there just to add to the industrial, slightly grungy vibe, as well as a bit of trash here and there. We've actually managed to squeeze in more than 300 jobs in this small area, which I think is quite nice given all the empty space we're still seeing. And I mean, the budget is starting to look all right. We're definitely bringing in some more tax revenue by now. Things are really starting to come together here. I'm so happy I got this industry in because we've pretty much just been building, you know, some mixed use and a lot of residential. And I definitely need clusters of this throughout the city to really make it realistic feeling and looking. And we are even turning a bit of profit. But of course, we haven't done any service expansions with all this added in. So yeah, we'll see how the financial situation actually looks down the line. But I just want to highlight a couple of changes I did based on the wonderful feedback from you guys on the previous video. So someone who is a lot more knowledgeable on water infrastructure than me suggested I get this groundwater pumping station out of the way. If you guys recall, it was placed right here, almost cutting underneath the Route 28 interstate bridge here. So I've moved it as far away damn, from the heavy traffic arterials here as I possibly could, while still making sure it's sufficiently connected to this groundwater deposit, because otherwise it's not going to be of much use. Additionally, I did a very important change to the hospital here. So if you guys recall, this is the Health Research Institute building that we threw into the asset editor to repurpose it as a functioning hospital. I say functioning, but it wasn't actually functioning because I missed two very important checkboxes when I created this asset, which meant that it could carry no patients. Basically, the ambulances seemed to just be driving in circles around the city, carrying the patients. A bit of a morbid situation, but I have fixed that all up. So once again, thank you guys so much for bailing me out when I when I mess up. Someone also suggested I move the spawn point for the ambulances somewhere else, because as you guys can see, it's at this awkward location here. I tried to do that in the asset editor. I've added like some spawn points back here, but I just haven't been able to get it to work. But we have a magic trick up our sleeve, which is big trees. So I think I'm gonna place a couple of big trees and do just a bit of landscaping here to the hospital, because then this should hopefully be much less noticeable, because fortunately this small lane here is only ever used by garbage trucks and ambulances. And just look how much nicer that actually looks, and we can barely see the weird ambulance spawning point here. And I'm sure you can find some study out there suggesting that a lot of greenery on the hospital grounds actually helps people's physical recovery. We also gave the big school here a bit of attention, added in some detailing, a few different types of trees as well. And speaking of schools, I think, I mean, we're so behind on education, but we need to keep placing schools without making it actually boring. So I think I'm going to grab one of these custom schools and maybe see if I can place one out here on Battery Hill. We've got a bit of space here, which I think might be a decent fit. So I am just going to place, I'm going to place this here, and then we're going to grab the bit of Bulldozer, and we are going to remove, let's see, someone mentioned this option to me as well in a comment in the recent video. I hadn't really used this before, but it allows me to remove the individual sub-elements and actually keep some of the other ones, which is another wonderful suggestion. So I don't think I'm gonna do much in terms of detailing of this small school here. A 500 capacity for a building this size, that seems like a little much, but we're gonna, I'll be honest, we'll take it for now, because we just desperately need the capacity. And I think the overall architecture and the coloring, of course, fits in really well with Battery Hill. Although it also just highlights the crazy contrast we have here on either side, of Cypress Street, with Battery Hill being cozy upscale, and then we're moving into some industry. And I think we're gonna wrap up with a little more expansion here in winter. We've got a few blocks here that I would like to kind of fill out, and we're gonna do a bit of a mix. So I'm imagining we want some low rent stuff here on these blocks here, and then maybe I'll see if I can squeeze in like a bit of industry or offices here. You know, this is a very, very interesting space nestled in between some of this hairy infrastructure. So it's definitely a little tricky due to like elevation and whatnot, and, you know, easy or not so easy access, but it's also gonna look more interesting. But we'll start with the low rent stuff. That should be fairly straightforward. So we're just gonna move in here. We're gonna say high density, and if I go low, then I should pretty much only get the low rent options. And I think for this corner here, we want like one big building, and then here we can probably squeeze in a couple of the same buildings. So let's just see if we can find a massive building or a pretty big building to kind of kick off this development. So something like this is what I'm looking for. This one is perhaps just a bit too massive. So I think, yeah, this one is maybe just too tall. I think I'm gonna grab this version here. We're gonna disable snapping with the placement, because I want I'm wondering if I should, can I like fuse them together and create a single tower? Do I have a version that is even smaller? I do. I have this version here. So let's just see if this is actually gonna, if this is gonna look any good. If I create one tower here and then flip it, and I try to kind of stick the other tower into it like this, we don't have any access issues or anything like that, so that's very positive. Do we need to kind of, I mean, I guess I could remove that fence and this one, but other than that, then, you know, adding in a few paths, a few decals and some trees, and then that's probably gonna be pretty good. Moving across the street here, we need something that is definitely a little smaller if we have hopes of placing multiple next to each other. So I'm wondering if we can do maybe something like this, or do they need to be a little more substantial? I mean, I guess we could do one of these taller ones and then do maybe do this one, which is the exact same design, it's just a smaller version, and then maybe do the smallest one at the very end here, so that it's kind of stepwise. And they come with a bit of parking, which is also wonderful. And I think for this corner building here, I actually want to experiment a bit with like seeing if I can add a commercial base to it. So we're a little close to the road, so I might bring this back a little and adjust the placement of the high rises as well. And let's see, can I add something like, oh, this is gonna get a little tricky, but I think it might just work. I don't want to clip too much into that building though. So if we do something like this, and then I'll need to, like I said, I'll grab the building here and just bring that back ever so slightly, so that we have the storefront being fully visible. We'll do the same here, bring it back a bit, something like that. And then we certainly need to get rid of some of the fences that kind of, actually I'll get rid of much of the stuff back here, because that's just gonna kind of, yeah, something like that is actually fine. And I mean, I guess it works. It's by no means perfect, but it does make things a little more interesting. And obviously this is a prime location for some graffiti, I think. So we'll just get that added in, and we're just gonna be a little quick about it, make it a little messy. It's not really a spot where any one graffiti artist has been able to like make something super nice that the other dudes aren't gonna tag up. So something like that looks pretty good. And I don't think we'll add a commercial base over here. I think it's fine to just keep as is. So you guys know the deal by now. We'll add in this decal here. Want to keep this relatively low detail so that we can kind of make these areas pretty quickly. We'll add in a few trees around the place here, especially on the backside here. I imagine you know, you'd plant some trees to kind of reduce how invasive the train line is going to be right next to this housing unit. And that is looking pretty good. And I think this added quite a bit of housing. 122, 93, 78, and double 114-ish. And then the industry stuff back here. Now this is a bit of an interesting space. I think I want the biggest possible you know, buildings I can squeeze in. And then, yeah, something like this, or maybe something like this, which I think might include just a bit of parking. So I'm just gonna place this and see how it terraformed the surroundings, and that actually looks pretty good. It pretty much flattened its the lot it was placed on, which is perfect, I think. So yeah, that's a pretty good hit. Just add in a ton of these, and then we'll add in the trees, of course. But I kind of want to see if I can squeeze in something. I don't know if I should actually develop something on the hill Actually, I know what we can place up here. A radio mast, of course. Although I'm wondering if I should unlock the telecom tower. How expensive? 125k. Oh my, the radio mast is 25. And I don't have any money. I can't afford it. Should I build it? Nah, I have to bring in more taxpayers before I venture out into something like that. So I mean, I guess I could. I guess I really need to add in. I need to add in like a bit more in terms of actual development before I add in more services, because man, our budget is looking rough. Like, it's looking really rough. So yeah, let's see what we can do here. I just am adding a road here, just trying to make it a little more manageable, and then I can squeeze in an additional industrial lot here. Man, I need to hit pause or something, because this is this could get really awkward really fast, I think. So I need something that is kind of long and narrow to be placed here. It could be like some warehousey stuff, something like this. Should probably be fine. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna add this in, and I wonder if we can just squeeze in a small something here. I think we can. Elevation wise, it's a little wonky, but it's not enough for me to really worry about it. So we'll get in some decals, we'll add in some trees, and then I think we're gonna call it a day. And I think that's it. I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. Very quick little build. I think I'm just gonna flip Hawthorne Lane so that we have parking on this side, because we have, you know, lots of needs to enter this building here. And, you know, we're keeping the option open to expand Hawthorne Lane so that it kind of enters this hill here, and we can build maybe some more industrial stuff, or maybe some of this like a telecom infrastructure, which I think would be a perfect fit up here. But as I said, we're bleeding money, so even something as cheap as that, we're not gonna build before we actually fill in more housing. And we have a major traffic accident here in downtown West Point. Lots of ambulances and fire engines. Ooh, pretty serious stuff. Anyways, I think that's going to be a wrap for this episode. I don't want it to spiral completely out of control. So yeah, I am very, very happy with Battery Hill in particular, but I'm also very happy with how we've developed a good chunk of winter as well. So in upcoming episodes, we're going to fill out winter, we're going to fill out Coal Ridge, and then of course we'll get to downtown. And I can really feel the excitement of getting started with this place growing, because we really need to carefully consider just how dense and how tall we want the downtown to be, as that's going to be a pretty defining factor here in Easthaven. So as always, I want to thank you guys so much for the support and all the wonderful feedback. It really helps me really get to implement some fixes that are very, very necessary, not just for realism, but as we saw with the hospital, also just for basic functionality. So once again, thank you so much. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you on the next one. Goodbye.